Hi again, everybody. Short day today, my third time to face this audience, and I'm extremely happy continuously to be talking to you people here. This time, in this company, you may think what actually links us three. Mr. Harari, a philosopher. Mr. Parts, an EU auditor. Me, a president, a former EU auditor, because few people here know, but I was in the same job before. But we thought we will discuss with you the rule of law, because the scheme of this conference is happiness. And for me, actually, rule of law is a strong reason to feel happiness, because what does rule of law give you? It gives you predictability in the society. If I am a law-abiding citizen, neither government nor somebody else can come and take what I own, what I've honestly earned, what I have in this society, including my personal position in the society, including my image in the society, away from me. It's predictable what will happen to me if I'm a law-abiding citizen. It's predictable what will happen to me if I'm not. And this guarantees me a peaceful mindset. I know that I am protected. Am I right or am I wrong, Juhan? I mean, you are a lawyer, so maybe you would like to start.
Thank you very much, Mrs. President, dear Kersti, we can say just on this way. And thank you very much for organizers inviting me to this panel, and I am really moved and distinguished. Just for introductory, and I don't want to not lecture for Ukrainian case, because I'm not very much a big expert of that, despite that we are working also as a European Court of Auditors about Ukrainian and EU policies towards that. But for the introductory, 5 preconditions, what is needed to achieve real results on setting up the rule of law. So, and I will listing them with a short descriptions. And later, I hope we can a little bit discuss about that. Without these, nothing will happen. And we will coming back and back after years and years and talking the same issues. So, 5 preconditions, success factors for functioning rule of law. First, ownership. Somebody have to take ownership. In ideal society, the ownership is shared by the political, economical, or business and cultural so-called elite. That is the ideal. It's not enough that the political establishment just declaring rule of law as a priority. The agenda should be real. The agenda should be implemented not as a just emotion, but a continuous systemic long-term effort. So this is the first, ownership. Oh. The second, algorithm. I have big fun of Professor Harari's books, and he always described that we are as a algorithm. And also the leadership should think about algorithms. And I think it's a very important what algorithm the leadership choose is after whatever revolution or collapse of the former imperium, redistribution of the wealth or creating the wealth. It seems me that countries and nations who have chosen the first algorithm will be failed, for sure. So you should choose the algorithm, the creation of wealth, whatever it costs, then everybody will be the winners. The third is a deterrence. Without fear of the sanction, because we are human beings, we always not follow the rules. So you need effective so-called law enforcement and judiciary. And I don't want to talk about Ukrainian reality, but I thought about, I think this is the most important, whatever is happened. And why not? And we are also counting the money is to outsource this from some from abroad for the certain period of time. For example, FBI. Fourth, and I think this is something what our president is very familiar and best speaker, is transparency. But here we are not talking of transparency as a buzzword, repeating. I think the condition should be radical, extreme transparency. Make everything public that's possible. This social control will make much better or effective work to set up the rule of law, but with any kind of bureaucratic regulation. So that's the fourth, radical transparency. And the last one is for us. External pressure should be always external pressure. But now is the question, what kind of pressure we need? And this is not about case about EU versus Ukraine or neighborhood countries or other developing countries. It is absolutely clear that we should, and I mean the outsiders or donors so-called, should be much strengthening this conditionality. Zero tolerance. No results, no money. That should be the policy. Then that will be and no excuse about diplomacy or other kind of political risks. So, because also the donors, taxpayers, ask about the results. So this is my contribution for this excellent conference. Thank you.
Spoken with the authority of the Prime Minister of Estonia from 2003 onwards, during the time when we were not quite members of the European Union, so conditionality was also applied to us, I believe, in a quite strong term. Also spoken with authority from the fact that you are a known legal thinker in public spending matters, because you are also the former national auditor. Before I give floor to you, I need to ask one question about your second principle. You said no redistribution, rather, gaining in the wealth. I believe you meant that those who come to power should not try to redistribute and take away from those who had power and resources before, and totally kind of with each electoral cycle to rearrange, how the societies run. I believe you didn't mean that we should not do social policies or something.
Absolutely, you are right.
Okay.
You're right. I am talking about the algorithm for these who have been grabbed or elected after the revolution, whatever revolution it is. In Ukrainian case, of course, we know what we are talking about. Collapse of the Soviet Union, Orange Revolution, Maidan, and so after these shifts of power, algorithms of the newly elected or trusted persons, they have to have the creation of wealth, not the redistribution of that. I hope the present, a new president and parliament, all others, follow this algorithm. I think this is absolutely critical, not to start to redistribute existence.
Thank you. And now I think you can tell what you think of what we two really boring mainstream politicians from Europe, boring, stagnant Europe, have said. So the floor is yours.
Boring is good. Boring in politics, the greatest compliment you can give anybody is you come from a boring country. There is nothing better than that. So don't be apologetic at all. I agree, of course, with these 5 conditions or suggestions. I would add that, especially in this time in history, that we also need to think about the connection between rule of law and nationalism and patriotism. Because too many people, in their minds, they create this division that say things like rule of law and independent courts and human rights, they are on one side, and nationalism is on the other side, and you have to choose. And historically, it's not like that, it's the exact opposite. That a functioning, strong democracy is usually also based on a strong sense of national community, of nationalism and patriotism. But we need to have a clear understanding of what nationalism is. As I just said in the talk, nationalism is not about hating foreigners, as too many people today try to imply. Nationalism is about loving and taking care of your compatriots. And rule of law is essential for that. I would say that in the actual practice of people, if you think especially about politicians, there are a lot of politicians who come and say, I'm a great patriot because I hate the foreigners and I hate the minorities. And we should tell these people, this is not a sign of patriotism, spreading hatred. The three best indications of patriotism in a politician are first, that you pay your taxes honestly. When you pay your taxes, what it actually means is that you give your money so that people you don't know on the other side of the country get good education and healthcare. And that's patriotism. Secondly, that you don't take bribes, because then you prefer your own bank account to the interests of your nation, of your compatriots. And thirdly, that you don't appoint friends and family to key positions or to government positions, because then again, you prefer the narrow interest of your small circle to the interest of millions of citizens. The magic of nationalism is that it manages to make millions of people who don't know each other nevertheless care about each other and cooperate effectively. And this effective cooperation, this is a rule-based system. I treat you not, I don't give preference to my friends and families because I know them, but I think equally about millions of other people whom I don't know, but they are still part of my nation.
Interesting. I heard you calling for open nationalism. I mean, being open, respecting human rights, but at the same time, not being really too shy of saying, I'm a proud Estonian, I'm a proud Ukrainian, whatever. I think it is not in contradiction with at the same time being a global citizen and a supporter of the international rules-based world order. Coming from you, it's maybe more believable for most people than coming from politicians who always tell that open nationalism cannot exist because openness and nationalism are on the other sides. But I don't think so as well, similarly to you. Juhan, what do you think about expressing your patriotic feelings about by paying taxes, by not accepting the bribes, etc.? Is it exactly the same as I started this, that rule of law creates happiness, is a guarantee of happiness, or is it taking it too far, saying that, I mean, paying taxes is being patriotic? What do you feel about it?
I agree with this, that talking, and this is not, I think this is wonderful topics for all conference happiness. But I am a little bit afraid that too much talking about persons, something individual things is too dangerous on the public level, you know. This is the one. I remember a little bit about, for me, this happiness. Remember me a story what was used to talk in the Soviet time. I think in this audience is that there was broken fence, and the first point of the agenda board, how and who should improve the broken fence. As there was no hammer and nails, then they immediately went to the next item of agenda, which was building a communism, you know. So therefore, you know, I recommend more a very practical and pragmatic approach if we are talking about the rule of law, because connecting rule of law about very important like patriotism, nationalism, which I fully share what you said and Professor Harari said, but anyway, I think it is too dangerous that we are starting to talk about things which are very far from, and we are not actually doing what we should do today, right now, here. So therefore, if we talk a rule of law, let's be very practical and right to the point, you know.
So I'm not sure you understand our communist area jokes, but I'm sure most of the auditorium did understand. So who, in your mind, should have and should use these nails and this hammer to fix the fence, to make sure that there will be the rule of law? Is it a top-down or is it a bottom-up process?
No,
Because I don't know whether you know, but I mean, Ukrainian society, this progress it has made has been more because of they have allowed a really lively, free-thinking society, and Ukrainian citizens are proudly free. They are proudly free to tell off all their politicians, to voice their open opinions, and they're not at all scared. And this is why I'm quite sure that Ukraine will manage in the future successfully. Or is this enough, or should that be also the top-down, or how can the top-down approach, I mean, be supported by this bottom-up?
It's always together. I mean, usually in history, things that are just unidirectional, they don't have the momentum to keep going. The things that in history keep going and really make a change is when you kind of close the circle, that the citizens put pressure on the government has better institutions, better policies, so the trust of the citizens grows, and so forth and so on. So I don't think we need to, like, it's only responsibility of that side or only the responsibility of that side. It should come from both. And the important thing about the government, and this connects to the subject of this conference, of happiness, that there are really two kinds of governments in the world. Some governments rule by making people feel bad, and some governments rule by making people feel good. Now, it sounds crazy that you can rule by making people feel bad, but it's quite common. How does it work? Usually in authoritarian regimes, that you make people feel anxious and frightened and angry. You direct that negative emotions towards an enemy, foreigners, immigrants, minorities, and then the government comes to protect the people from this enemy. And it makes the job of the government much easier, because you don't need to provide good healthcare or education, you just need to provide this protection. Now, the good ideal of government is that you actually try to improve the conditions of people, to make them feel better and not worse, but this demands a lot of hard work. It's much, much harder to build a functioning healthcare system than to scare people about traitors and then persecute these so-called traitors. And this comes back to the hammer and nails, that to build a functioning healthcare system is not about making a big speech or passing a law. It's a lot of daily, boring decisions and actions, one doctor, one nurse, one clinic after the other.
I tend to agree with you that, I mean, the bottleneck is education and healthcare, and I may maybe also ask Juhan whether you share this feeling, because, you know, new technologies make us to constantly to kind of reinvent ourselves and our societies, and the cycle is contracting. That was going from agri-society to industrial, and this was actually, I mean, had out on simple people. They paid the price of this reform. First years of industrial work for everybody coming from rural areas was poor hell. 50s was still, I mean, pretty rotten, got better in 60s with the rise of productivity. Now comes the tech cycle. I mean, we have much stronger social market economies in Europe. We can support people in this. But this tech cycle makes us, I mean, to change more quicker, more radically. In addition, no country can be assured that their citizens work even in their own country, study even in their own country, or in their own country while they are using their e-services, for example. How do we, in this environment, manage still to cater to our people, to make sure that our economies do not actually, and societies do not actually disintegrate because the technological cycle has got shorter? Would it be even more important to make these long-standing promises to your people, like I will be the safe doc for your healthcare, for your education, wherever you work globally. I will find the ways and means to tax you in an honest way, in an equal way, wherever you work. You may be working in 10 different companies in 5 different countries. I will keep my link to you. I will keep my promises to you, my citizen. I am your safe haven, safe doc. Or what do you think? Is the rule of law becoming more and more important and forward guidance by governments becoming more and more important when everything else is so unpredictable and in so quick a change?
My thinking is that my short answer is that I don't know. But my attitude is that despite these unpredictable changes, and I think fantastic vision what Professor Harari described today and his book 21st Century and the Future of Humankind, these could be happened. Professor Harari doesn't say that this will certainly happen. So my attitude is that to minimize the risks of this unpredictability, which can technology bring, which can kind of consequences of this globalization bring, we should keep some points of where we can rely. And I think this kind of, and here I will be much more conservative. So keep them alive and functioning, which make some order and some respect about human societies, you know. And this is something so-called, you know, rule of law, which is not a bureaucracy, which is not a labyrinth of regulations, but which is a kind of way how we can respecting each other, of course, laws and all others. So I will be much more conservative, but saying that, I am absolutely sure that something will be changed, and of course, we are already on the process of redefining rule of law in many, many aspects. Mm-hmm. I think we will far behind what already have happened. Global companies, all this so global village coming reality, how to address this, how to guarantee these principles, good principles of rule of law from this global world, what we live already now. So I have no answer for that. So we have to much more work on that direction.
I would maybe just focus on one very crucial area of law and rule of law, which is the ownership and control of data, which is now like the most open field with almost no regulation and very little understanding on the side of politicians and lawyers and citizens of what's actually happening. Data is now the most important asset in the world. Just in the last 200 years, we needed to create an enormous new body of law to deal with industry. Now we need a new body of law and rule of law to deal with the flows of data in the world. Just to give one example, what's the meaning of national independence for countries if their data is being hoarded by corporations or governments elsewhere? Think 20 or 30 years in the future, when the personal data, all the secrets, all the personal life, all the healthcare details of every politician, mayor, military officer, judge in Estonia or in Ukraine or in, I don't know, Brazil, is being held by somebody in the United States or China or Russia. That country is no longer independent. It can call itself independent as much as it likes and celebrate Independence Day. If its data, if this kind of data is held elsewhere, it's no longer independent. And we need to think very carefully, both in global terms as well as in local terms. How do you regulate the flows of data in the world and ensure that the rule of law extends to this new arena?
Well, now I really have to invite you to Ukraine or Estonia, where both governments exercise the single digital identity by which they can protect the data and also promise to their people that they can actually check who has checked their data. Mm-hmm. Estonia does this for a long time. Ukraine is striving to do this, but we do not have time for this discussion today. Just please come and see, I mean, what's going on here in digital governance or in Estonia as well. But I think, do you both then, and we are in overtime already, so please, my friends, tell me, do you finally feel that rule of law has an integral central role because it provides societies clear forward guidance, for example, how we as societies handle tech change, handle climate change, and give some security to people. Or am I totally wrong and rule of law has nothing to do with this kind of forward guidance, giving people predictability and happiness? Short answer.
It's crucial because when lots of people try to cooperate, they must have rules. It doesn't work any other way.
And I now give final word to
and
Juhan.
most non-Estonian answer, Mrs. President is never wrong.
Thank you all for listening. Me, myself, luckily, don't think this way. Otherwise, I would be a really horrible politician. And I know Juhan doesn't think seriously this way as well. And then welcome to look more into Ukrainian society and to see how they are striving to be ready for the future, also protect the data. These mechanisms do exist. Don't despair. And I hope we all are a little bit happier when we have listened to such hopeful conferences like today. I really respect YES conference for making sure that Ukrainians are in permanent and constant contact with the best thinkers globally and with all politicians, even EU officials, because today you are an EU official. Thank you, Juhan. Thank you, Mr. Hariri.
Thank you.